Welcome to the Valley Today, a public service presentation of the good folks at KAIL TV. The Dan Rovit Flat Track Museum, in its 20th year, has expanded and added more bikes and memorabilia to its already impressive collection. Join us as we visit with Dan Rovit and Bob Miller, next on the Valley Today. Welcome to the Valley Today. We have the distinct pleasure of being with Dan Rovit at the Dan Rovit Flat Track Museum. Thanks for being with us, man.
No, thanks for coming back.
And we've been here a couple of times, but you know, it's always a treat to come and see motorcycles and the history that they've generated here in California.
Yes, they have.
Yeah, and so how are things going with you?
Good. We're just enjoying it, having people come by and see the place, and they're loving it. And
you are just digging life.
Yes, I've been in love with these circle track racers for a long time.
And you know, I was talking to Bob Miller earlier about flat track, and really flat track is one of those things that you don't hear too much about anymore.
No, it's been slowly dying, and it's just the economy, and tracks are so far to get to, and you know, California is dying off, and the West Coast was really the hotbed.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, 80s, and even in the 90s, and now all we have is a few tracks running some vintage races around here, and we've got some nationals coming back to California this year for the first time in probably about 8 years.
But it would seem that, you know, as far as racing goes, that motorcycle racing would certainly be a lot cheaper than driving cars, racing cars, you know, certainly sprint cars or, you know, any of the more expensive stuff. So it seemed like this would be a natural progression, would be to start with motorcycles and then work your way up.
Right. Well, yeah, there has been a lot of Grand National riders that got their start in cars, and they've changed to motorcycles, and it's just the cost now is so much. The factories no longer sponsor any riders. Harley Davidson has pulled their factory sponsorship about 2 years ago, and so now pretty much all the riders that ride the bikes today are privateers. Yeah, and they get local sponsors that just are main enthusiasts that want to help these young guys make it to the big time,
right?
To get that Grand National #1 plate.
Yeah. Now, did flat track come from the board? You know, at the turn of the century, back when motorcycles were first coming on, they had the board track racing.
Right.
And that was a track that
right.
They had wood planks around. And
yes.
I can imagine. You know, I would rather fall on dirt than fall on wood.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. It was. Yeah, they were usually mile in length, made out of 2x4, standing on edge. Yeah. And most all the tracks were made by a gentleman named Jack Prince. And right here in Fresno were our horse racing tracks at the fairgrounds. There was a board track.
They had a board track
right there. Yes. Matter of fact. A local rider named Dutch Van Tassel. Yeah, he rode there. But
it would seem like they would just have just either a dirt track or an asphalt track. Why would they go to the trouble to make a board track?
Well, I don't think we had much asphalt back in those days.
Right.
I think everything was dirt.
Yeah.
And then when they did run on the dirt, the dust was so bad that they put calcium in lye in the dirt. And guys would fall off and get a cut. Get the lye in their wound, and then they got an amputation going on.
Really?
A lot of riders lost legs and arms and died from infections.
So catch us up with flat track. So from the board track, it eventually progressed to flat track is dirt, right? It's not asphalt.
No.
Yeah.
No, they run on mainly clay tracks. Some tracks are like a little sandier.
Just depends on what part of the country you're in, depending on what kind of dirt they have.
Right. That's true. Yeah, Springfield. The Springfield Mile still runs, been running since the 50s, and they still run there twice a year, and the average speed is 100 miles all the way around, so they're doing about 140 on the straightaways. With
people chasing you and constantly making a left turn, huh?
Yes, dragging that steel shoe on the left foot, and they fly. Most guys ride the Harley Davidsons, and it's just still going, but the economy and the insurances and the gas prices and just what it takes to get to a race is pretty expensive for a privateer.
Yeah, I like that. You call them privateers.
Well, that's what they are. They get local family and friends and people to help them get there, and they do their best, and they when they get hurt, the insurances are hard to keep up with. And
So when was flat track the biggest? When was the crowds the biggest and the buzz was the biggest with flat track?
According to most of the guys that raced, they seem to feel that the 70s was the best. That's when we had all the factories involved, all the British bikes, BSA, Triumph, and Norton, and Yamaha was out there. Suzuki had bikes. Of course, Harley-Davidson was there in force with what they called their wrecking crew, and they only hired the best.
Yeah.
And that was probably when it was a real competitive era.
And what was the best bike in the mid 70s? What was the best bike that everybody looked at and drooled?
Well, for the flat track, the guys at Road Pro, Harley-Davidson XR 750s, and Harley-Davidson has won more #1 plates than any bike in history.
Yeah.
They started winning #1 back in the 50s, and they're still winning #1 today.
And it was probably the best bike because it was a locally produced bike. So,
Right.
I mean, the parts were more easily available if you broke something. Or,
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a motor that Harley-Davidson built strictly for racing.
Now, that 750, was that a little V-twin?
It's a V-twin.
Yeah.
If we have time, we have one in the back room we can show you.
And I know that we're getting a little off subject here, but we're in the old room here of the Dan Root Flat Track Museum. The neat thing is that they've expanded, and boom, here we are. You thought you saw enough motorcycles here? Well, there's more motorcycles back here. It just keeps getting better and better, huh, Dan?
Well, we hope so. Bigger and better. And as I mentioned, here's the XR 750 right here.
So this was the bike to have in 75.
Even today.
Yeah.
They're still around today. They first came out in 1972. They just keep refining them. And then as you notice here, this is a Harley factory racing leather suit and helmet worn by a guy that was from in the Midwest, and he was a Grand National champion named Rich King. This is his complete outfit.
Here's the steel toe for the left.
There it is. There's the steel shoe.
So I guess the boots, the left boots wore out. Well, maybe they didn't wear out faster because you had a steel cap on.
No, you got your.
But the guy was constantly dragging his left foot, huh?
Just mainly flat on the ground, and yes.
And so he kind of used that for balance and maybe a little braking or going.
Well, actually, to kind of brake and stabilize you as you went around the corner.
Yeah. Well, this is very cool. So as this progressed to the 993, is that the small sporty that they're making now?
I'm not sure on the road bikes, but after they went from this class, they moved up to where Harley came out with an 883 Sportster. And they tried running
that's
those.
what I meant. I meant the 883 then,
Okay.
yeah.
They tried running those in the dirt tracks, and it just didn't work out too well.
How come?
They just weren't competitive enough, and the crowd didn't like because they weren't fast enough.
Yeah.
They weren't going as fast as the XRs.
Really?
Right.
Wow. So this now were the bikes they were racing with against, were they also twin cylinder bikes? So they had to have about the same horsepower or displacement on the motor to be in that class?
Pretty much, yes. Nowadays Suzuki's, some guys are trying Suzuki's and some of the other Japanese brands trying to get them involved.
Yeah.
But they've got so much horsepower they can't get the rear wheel to stop spinning. They just can't get the horsepower to the ground.
Yeah,
so
the guy that gets the horsepower to the ground is the guy that's going to be out in the lead.
Right. That's why the Harley has been so refined. It's still the bike to beat.
Yeah. So this is the new room here.
Yes.
And what new bikes do you have to show us?
Well, one of them I'd like you to take note of is this one here. This bike here was raced in...
Charles, and look at this right here.
These bikes were raced, are still raced in Tokyo. They raced them on a quarter-mile asphalt track, and they bet on them like horses.
Is that a Triumph?
Yes, that's a 1950-something Triumph pre-unit, and you sure wouldn't think the Japanese would use British motors, but they used BSA and Triumphs clear up into the 80s, and now they run a Suzuki motor, but they gamble on them like horses.
Really?
Thousands of people show up at the tracks, and there's about 6 or 8 tracks around.
That's flat track racing, right?
And they race around a quarter-mile oval, asphalt, and the crowd, there's 30 to 40,000 people.
So what's fallen out of favor on the West Coast has gained prominence in Japan, huh?
Yeah, yes, and there's been stories that riders that didn't do what they did because the mobs are mobs were involved at one time, and if they didn't throw a race, they were never seen again.
Yeah, that's a tough gig.
Yes, yes, it's.
That is such an unusual looking bike. Boy, they pulled all the weight off. They've got just a small tank here, what, maybe a quarter of a gallon of fuel?
Yep, they run about 8 laps, and there's no brakes.
Yeah.
Once again, you notice the handlebars, how different they are than American, the way we do it here in America.
And what was the idea with this?
They put their knee up underneath that to kind of brace themselves.
Oh, I see. So, because they're constantly making a left turn.
Always, yep, left hand.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. Now, what else do you have here?
Oh gosh, lots of new stuff has come in since last year, and
this is all. Most of this is donors that have brought their stuff in.
Yes, a lot of it's on loan. Here's what they're riding today, or I should say they were, till they got banned. They wanted to get the manufacturers more involved, so they got Honda involved and Suzuki and Yamaha with their new 450 engines. And then the AMA changed the rules and said you can only run stock frame, which like you would get it off the showroom floor. So this frame here is called a J&M, and
Monoshock.
Monoshock, yes, that's the style now.
But they put it off to the side.
On some they do. Some they do, some are in the center.
So what's the horsepower that they can get out of these 450s now?
You know, I'm not really sure. I would say probably around 60 or so.
Well, that's a lot of horsepower.
And
the horsepower to weight ratio is monster.
Yes, they're water cooled. And now they've changed the rules. You have to have a stock frame only. So this is an aftermarket, or what they call it now is a framer.
So to have a stock frame, they have to build so many bikes that they offer to the public, and then that's a stock frame so that then they can race it, right?
Right.
Is that how they look at it?
Right. Well, basically, you go into the dealership and you just buy a 450 Honda, Yamaha, whatever your taste, and it's basically a motocross bike. And they lower them down and change them around a little bit to make them handle on the dirt tracks.
Yeah. This just looks, it looks immense. The horsepower is just... What year model is this?
This one here is 2006.
Oh, okay. Wow. And you got you've got your event coming up, your open house, and that's a big deal for you guys.
Yes, and we are really honored and proud to say that it is our 20th year.
20th year.
It's our 20th anniversary, and the date is May 15th, Sunday, and we are always on the third Sunday of May. And it's open to the public, free admission. Come and join us. We'd love to have anybody enthused come by. And like I say, we are always looking for sponsors to help promote the event every year. And if you can't make it to the open house, my phone number will be on the screen at the end of the show.
What's the phone number here?
559-291-2242. And I'm here usually 7 days a week. Just give me a day or two notice that you'd like to come by, and I'll make arrangements to be here for you and take you for a tour, and hope you enjoy it.
That's great. You know, this is such a cool resource to, and you wouldn't suspect that being in the heart of Clovis. You wouldn't suspect that there's a motorcycle museum here.
No, we are the only one in the world.
You guys have a website?
Yes, we are on what's VFT, stands for VintageFlatTrack.org.
Yeah.
And you can click right onto the Dan Rovit Flat Track Museum.
Oh, that is very cool. Well, Dan, thanks for being on the Valley today.
Hey, thank you very much.
And thanks for keeping these vintage motorcycles alive. This is very cool.
Thank you. And I really want to, once again, I got to say, I really owe a lot to my wife, Kathy. She just wanted to help us get this all get going back in 1991.
That's great. This is first-class operation.
Thank you.
We're here with Dan Rovit at his Flat Track Museum here in Clovis. We have the distinct pleasure of being with Bob Miller. And Bob, you've known Dan for a few years?
Mm-hmm. 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And I've been around motorcycles for a long time, so it was a natural fit.
Now, were you a flat tracker too?
No, I never raced flat track. I did some road racing though, and when I was younger.
Which is different than the motocross.
Yeah, motocross it's still on dirt, but it's over hilly terrain. Whereas I raced on pavement at tracks like Ontario and Laguna Seca.
Yeah, I bet Laguna Seca had to be an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, so. Anyway, so that is different than here.
Right. And so what bikes would you like to show us that you think are very unique?
Well, this one is probably one of the most unique in here.
Roken automatic.
It's a Rokon.
I never heard of a Rokon.
They were actually made famous because they made a two-wheel drive dirt bike that could just basically go over any kind of terrain because both wheels were driven.
Oh, okay. So it had a front driven wheel.
And they decided they were going to make a flat tracker, and this is one of 4 prototypes that they built. So this is number 2 of 4.
And it's an automatic, so that means it has an automatic transmission?
It has a automatic transmission and clutch. So as soon as you give it throttle, you go. There's no clutch cable.
Yeah, so it's a centrifugal clutch in it?
There's a story about this one where a guy was going through a tech inspection and they were measuring the volume of how loud the exhaust was. And the guy inspecting it, he came up to it like he did every other bike, and he stuck the meter in the exhaust and gave it gas, and it took off.
So I guess there's no way to disengage a centrifugal clutch on this thing.
So that was kind of funny.
You know, these things are beautiful. They just are, you know, pristine. It's they probably have a real different look when they're on the track because they get dirty. But you know, as they are, they look very cool. Osa.
This Osa is
Rickman. I've never heard of a Rickman either.
Rickman. It was a specialty frame manufacturing company, and they were made in England. And you could buy a Rickman frame and stick your motor in it. And they made dirt bikes and street bikes. Oh,
so when these guys were running flat track in its heyday, were you able to build your own bike?
Sure. You could get your motor, whatever motor you liked, and then you would maybe get an aftermarket frame like this one, which and they had.
And what would be the advantage of having an aftermarket frame? I mean, were they just built that much better for flat track?
They didn't have, they were.
There you go, buddy.
They were all designed just for flat track.
Yeah.
So the geometry of them was better for flat track.
Sure.
They didn't have all the excess brackets that a street bike or
because there's nothing to hang on them other than the motor and the tranny and all that.
It was designed to have the right kind of forks bolted to it and all that.
Yeah. So since you built this new room now and expanded this museum, how many new bikes has he added?
I don't know exactly how many we have right now, but we're pushing 100. So
you're pushing 100.
Yeah, and
I remember the other room from the last time we did a show here a couple of years ago. The other room was really crowded because you had bikes in the median too. But as a result of you expanding, now you're able to.
So we've got like I said, right around 100 motorcycles, and for this open house that's coming up, our club, which is the Central California Classic Cycle Club. Our members are going to bring motorcycles and have them on display at the open house.
So beyond the bikes here, there's also going to be other people that are going to be buying.
I would think somewhere between 50 and 100 extra.
Yeah, and I went on the website and looked at, I guess, the event that you had last year, and it looked like you had a drag bike out front.
I think he's going to be here again this year.
Yeah.
And also, if you ever saw a movie called The World's Fastest Indian that starred... I can't think of his name right now.
Was it Anthony Hopkins?
Anthony Hopkins, yes.
Right, and that came out last year or the year before?
I think it's 3 years, maybe 3 years
new movie,
now.
Right.
And well, anyway, the person who owns that motorcycle lives near Morro Bay, and he's going to bring that.
Oh, cool.
And so...
Was that a true story?
Enhanced, but true.
Embellished, huh?
Yeah.
Hollywood embellished. And I noticed that you've got even mini bikes here. You've got like this little mini... racer here, but you've got old man. You know, I had a doodle bug.
Yeah,
I guess that's what it was called.
Right.
Yeah. And then these are kind of an interesting sensation.
That's one of the favorite of women that come here. They always love to see the little bike in a suitcase.
Yeah.
And they use them for like persons that had airplanes.
Right.
You'd fly into some airport and you'd get that out, and then you could go into town.
And that'd drive the local constable crazy. All kinds of stuff. It just, what do you think is the neatest thing in this museum that really catches your eye?
Oh, I don't know. You know, we have so many posters on the wall.
Yeah.
that it's hard to pick.
And those are collectible in themselves.
Oh yeah,
too, right?
some
The
of them are
vintage
worth
ones.
hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
And we just have so many posters that to just stop and look at each poster would take hours. You know?
Right. Yeah.
And they're all most of them are vintage from whenever the race was. You know.
And it looks like these bikes, some of these bikes are displaying the trophies that these bikes actually won.
Right, and some of them, if you notice, they have a picture of the bike next to the bike, so that might have been the person that rode this bike.
Oh yeah.
And here's a hill climber. We only have one hill climber in here, but as you can see the chains on the rear wheel to help it get traction. And here's a picture of that bike with the guy riding it. His name's Marsh Runyon, and this is not too far from Fresno.
Were they doing? They still do hill climbs at Pikes Peak, or they do it somewhere back in the Midwest, I think, don't they?
Yeah, Pikes Peak is actually a graded road that goes to the top
Right.
of Pikes Peak. That's a different kind of hill climb.
Yeah.
And but these were on a very steep incline.
Right.
And
Because I remember seeing video, and usually these guys are doing endos. They're going up, and
Right.
the front end will come up over them, and they get
There was
away from the bike before it goes down the hill.
there was a famous one in the Midwest called Widowmaker, and that was popular back.
And it was true to its name.
Yeah, I think so.
Right? Widowmaker.
So.
Oh, that is very cool. Very cool.
So we have many different kinds here. They're from every country you can think of. We have European bikes from Spain and Italy and
The big Spanish bike is the Bultaco, right?
Bultaco. We have quite a few Bultacos. They made a lot of flat trackers that were specifically designed for flat track.
Right.
But there's other ones. There's a Montesa, which is made in Italy, or Spain, excuse me, and also Ossa. So Dick Mann, who is a famous racer, he worked with Ossa factory, and they made a bike called the Dick Mann replica that was a flat tracker.
Yeah. It's kind of weird to think that Spain was kicking out bikes, you know. You wouldn't think of that. You'd either, in my day, it was you either thought of motorcycles coming from Japan, or there were some American motorcycles, you know, like Harley Davidson.
And we have quite a few from England. We have one that's Royal Enfield, and most people have never heard of a Royal Enfield, but it held at Ascot, held the lap record for like 10 years.
Wow.
And
No kidding.
it was tuned by a guy named Shell Truitt, and that Yamaha over there is also tuned by him.
Very cool. So the English stuff was Norton, BSA, Triumph,
Those were-
Enfield, Ariel. Was Ariel English bike?
They had aerials that were flat trackers. I don't know if we have one in here or not.
Right. My brother used to always talk about Ariel square fours. Ariel square fours. I didn't know what he was talking about, but I guess it was a two-row, two-cylinder bike.
Well, it was actually a four-cylinder motorcycle.
Yeah.
And they had two crankshafts, one in front of the other, that was a twin-cylinder crankshaft. So it made a square to the cylinders.
Hence the name Square Four. Yeah. Hey, we're almost out of time. Any last thoughts? We
just hope everybody comes to our open house on May 15th?
15th, Sunday the 15th. Yeah. From
It's
10,
open.
what, 10 to 3?
10 to 3, yeah. We have barbecue available, and there'll be a lot of extra motorcycles here that day.
And anybody that's crazy about, and you know what? My son is crazy about motorcycles. And so I might have to bring him out to it.
Well, there'll be a lot of people that ride here, and there's rides that start in town and end up here. And there'll be a lot of bikes just to look at. They're out in the parking lot.
Yeah. And the number 291-2242. So Dan Root Flat Track Museum, May 15th, Sunday from 10 to 3. They're going to have their open house here. Come and see all these fantastic bikes. And if you want a private showing, give Dan and Kathy a call at 291-2242. Bob Miller, thank you so much.
We appreciate you coming.
And thanks for being such a good friend to Dan. And this is The Valley Today. The Valley Today is a public service presentation of this great TV station. Thanks for watching, and have a great morning.